Welcome to this week's AMT Fresh Produce Market Overview. This week we look at the rainy and cold weather and the impact it can have on demand and supply on the markets, which ultimately determines the price. This episode is proudly brought to you by Nedbank and Villa. Let's start off with this week's top market movers. Our biggest winner was blueberries with a 41% increase, while sweet potato prices showed the biggest drop with a 7% drop in prices over the past week. Our one crop to watch this week is onions. We can either see an increase in price during June and peak at the start of July, or have we already seen a peak for this year if we see higher volumes during June? Let's keep an eye on that market. But with that, let's dive into the latest prices over the past week. As expected, the national average potato price stayed on a lower level last week due to high carryover stocks and traded on an average price of R50.36 per 10 kilogram bag. Large potatoes traded lower at R60, mediums at R49 and smalls at R30. Mondials were slightly down at R48, while Cifras came in at around R58. The average price for Class 1 potatoes across all sizes traded on R56.80. Volumes were exceptionally high over the past 5 weeks, which resulted in the price to stay on these lower levels. We have, however, seen that the cold, rainy weather stopped some supply of some volumes coming into the market, especially from the Eastern Free State and Douglas areas. There are Limpopo farmers, however, starting up, with the overall quality likely to start improving on the markets as well. We can, however, expect more volumes towards the end of the week again when the weather clears up and demand that can dip, so expect prices to trade sideways or even slightly lower for the next week or so. The average onion price stabilized on R100.45 per 10 kilogram bag and is now 9% higher than a year ago. Brown onions averaged on R102, red onions increased to R132 and white onions decreased to R97. Large onions traded higher at R107, mediums higher at R106 and smalls at R83. Last year the average price peaked in June and at around the R93 mark, but the expectation always was that the price this year can trade higher compared to last year due to more potatoes and less onions. We can therefore expect onion volumes to stay lower in June and prices to remain on these higher levels for now. Lower middle month demand can, however, put some pressure on these prices over the next 2 weeks. Tomato prices increased by about 7% to a national average price of R13.40 per kilogram. Large tomatoes traded at R16.42, mediums at R13.43 and smalls at R12.26. Last year, the average price dipped from about R12 to R8 during June due to more volumes. The cold weather this week can, however, slow the deliveries to the markets, which can keep prices on a slightly higher level, but the low demand can likely offset this effect, with prices likely to maintain its current levels for now. But expect prices to dip when warmer weather and lower demand is expected towards the middle of this month. As expected, carrot prices traded sideways last week on R8.63 per kilogram due to higher demand that was offset by the higher volumes. Large carrots traded on R9.56, mediums at R6.95 and smalls on R4.66. If the rain persists, we can see lower volumes on the markets, but we expect it to clear up soon and supply to the markets to pick up towards the end of this week. This will of course then start to drive prices downward and keep it low for the next week or two afterwards. This video is proudly sponsored by Villa. Through world-class technology like Masterlock, localized for South African conditions, Villa helps you manage risk and increase productivity and get it right the first time, backed by research that keeps you ahead. The average pepper price increased sharply again and increased by about 18% to R18.88 per kilogram. Green peppers came in higher at R15.15, yellow peppers increased to R27.07 and red peppers increased to R24.98. The average price is now 112% higher than this time last year, with volumes about 21% lower year on year. Last year, the average price only started to climb from July onwards, which was due to more favorable conditions last year. This year, however, we expect volumes to stay on a generally lower level and prices therefore to remain on this higher level until the end of August. Cabbage prices increased sharply by 11% to R3.89 per kilogram and is also likely to dip in June. Garlic prices recovered and increased by about 18% to R72.85, with local garlic now on R62.26 and imported garlic around R88.17. Garlic prices will likely remain on a higher level during June and July and then start trickling downward from August onwards as more local volumes will likely start to enter into the markets. Spinach prices jumped sharply by 18% to R5.21 per kilogram, with prices that will likely remain around these higher levels during June, July and August. Sweet potato prices also dropped by 7% to R4.99 last week and can remain around these levels in June as well. Pumpkin prices increased by 8% to R3.29, while butternut prices increased by 19% to R5.54. Both of these prices can trade sideways during June, but will then start to increase and peak during September and October. Green beans increased to R9.32 and cucumber prices stayed sideways on R22.78. Our latest monthly reports are also now available on our website, so go check them out at amtrends.co.za. Moving over to the fruit markets, however, the average banana price increased slightly to R7.66 per kilogram or R138 per 18 kilogram box. My expectation, however, is that banana prices can stay on a lower level over the next 3 months or so due to higher expected volumes. Apple prices dropped by 2% to R9.33 per kilogram, while pear prices remained on R9.09. Orange prices jumped by 14% to R4.71 per kilogram on the back of lower local volumes. We anticipate prices to bottom out in June and then remain on a lower level over the following 2 months. Avocado prices maintained current levels and traded on R15.41 per kilogram, still 9% above last year's price levels. Viertes stayed on R22, Haas remained on R12 and Pinkertons traded at R14 per kilogram. We continue to expect a slight upward price trend during June and July and volumes to start dropping sharply from August onwards, which can then drive prices sharply higher towards the end of the year. The average grape price increased by 6% as was expected and traded on R53.02 per kilogram. Expect grape prices to increase sharply in June and peak in July and also remain on higher levels in August due to low volumes expected. Pineapples traded on R11.33 and is likely to remain on a lower level in June and bottom out in July again. Lemons fell by 2% to R4.73, while the average blueberry price increased by 41% to R132 per kilogram last week. This episode was proudly brought to you by Standard Bank and Villa Crop Protection. For more detailed insights and forecasts and free downloadable tools, visit amtrends.co.za. I'm Dr. Johnny van der Merwe and thank you for tuning in. See you next week.